All right, everyone. Happy New Year, and welcome to another episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back. If you're watching on YouTube, you might recognize this man sitting next to me. Jackson Struggs is back for his second episode on the podcast. For those who maybe didn't catch his first episode, Jackson is a finance, economics, and energy management student at the University of Tulsa. He also placed first in the Teen Classic division of the Ronnie Coleman Classic in 2021 and second in the Men's True Novice Classic Physique division. In 2022, you placed first in the Teen Classic Physique and fifth in the Men's Classic Physique in the NPC Republic of Texas Championship. You also competed in Teen Nationals in 2022 and placed first in Class B and second in the overall competition. For those who did catch his first episode, he has been elected president of the Tulsa Pikes, a fraternity, the Gamma Epsilon chapter at the University of Tulsa. This group is comprised of scholars, leaders, athletes, and gentlemen. Jackson, super grateful to have you back on the show. Welcome to your second episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, David.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you. We had some technical difficulties getting up and running, but we're good to go now. To kick things off, I got you a birthday present and a Christmas present.
Oh my gosh.
So first,
oh, that's awesome.
The birthday present.
Do you need some help? Oh, that looks heavy.
It's a little heavy. And once you open it, you'll definitely see why.
Go ahead and open it.
Go ahead and open it. Yeah, let's see what we got.
All right. I don't want to drop the mic. Oh my gosh. Knows me too well. 12
So you can't exactly see, but yes, this is a 12-pack of Celsius.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if I hope you don't hate the flavor. It's the only one that I could get my hands on with such short notice.
That's amazing.
All right,
David, thank you so much. I used to use powdered pre-workout like since the time I started doing, weightlifting and bodybuilding and all that, like around 16, started taking supplements and stuff. And earlier in the summer, like May, June time, my stomach just stopped tolerating powdered pre-workout for some reason. I don't know why, but I just couldn't stomach it anymore. And so I switched to carbonated drinks, like energy drinks. And Celsius has been the one that I've liked the most. So thank you, David. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
I got you. So for present number 2.
Oh, Thad, you're all tangled up.
Dude, I have a feeling he's going to wreak havoc this episode. I took him for an extra long walk this morning too, hoping he would just go to sleep when you got here, but I think he's just excited to have company over.
Oh yeah.
Are you good there? Or?
Oh, I think his foot's still tangled a little bit. It's all right. There we go. Okay,
there we go.
Good. We're good.
All right. So for the second one, I have one of 3 options for you.
Okay.
These are all books that are not directly aligned to leadership.
Okay.
But are sort of parallel and have lessons in them that I think are good for all leaders to know. I've read all 3 of them. I don't like giving books that I haven't read myself. So I'm not going to tell you the title or the author, but I'm going to give you sort of a pitch for each one, and then you get to choose which one based off of what is interesting to you or just whatever jumps out at you.
Okay.
So book number 1 is about figuring out what you love, what you are good at, what you can be paid for, what the world needs, and combining those things to live a long, healthy, successful life. It's about discovering and combining your passion, mission, profession, and vocation all into one unified collaboration. I think this one could be good for you because you and me all both have a million things going on at once in our lives. And this one taught me just how to focus, how to be efficient, reminded me to take time for myself. There's just a ton of lessons packed in it. And it is a shorter one. So if you wanted to power through it in like 4 or 5 hours, you probably could. So that's what's behind door number 1. This one, there are 2 kinds of people that essentially walk through a park. You have one person who has their headphones on, hood over their head, sunglasses on, looking down, no idea what's going on around them. The second person maybe has no headphones on or one headphone in. And as they're walking through a park filled with 100 people, they can sort of ascertain that 60 to 70 of these people are parents and their kids that are probably playing, and they pose little to no threat to anyone else in the park. Another 20 to 30 of those 100 people may be on dates, painting, sleeping in a hammock, doing yoga. Again, probably poses little to no threat. And by the time they get from one end of the park to the other, they can identify without knowing any of these people who the 1 or 2 people are that might pose a threat to either themselves or the rest of the people in the park. This book essentially, I think everyone on the planet should read because it teaches you how to listen to your intuition, but it also teaches you things such as connecting with others, how to deal with loss, rejection, why we like connection, why we do more to avoid pain than we do to seek pleasure, why we dislike embarrassment, and just a slew of other topics. So this one is phenomenal. probably my favorite of the three. Last but not least, the third book. To describe this book, I'm going to tell you a quick story. Imagine that you and a friend are going to have a picnic at the park. And as you're lying out the blanket and getting your tuna fish sandwiches out of a basket, you hear yelling in the river that's next to the place where you're setting up. So you and your friend look over, and of course, there's a kid drowning in the river. So you both jump in, you get the kid out, and as you're making sure the kiddo's okay, you hear another kid yelling in the water. So you jump back in, fish this kid out, and then there's a third kid, fourth, fifth, and this process is repeating itself over and over again. As you're fishing out the 10th kid, you're starting to get tired and doubt yourself and wondering, how am I going to keep up with saving these kids? And as you're at that moment of your own despair, it gets even worse when your friend gets out of the water and starts walking away. And so you yell at your friend and say, hey, where are you going? And he turns around and looks at you and he says, I'm going to go kick the guy's ass that's throwing all these kids in the water. So this book is about 16 case studies of different leaders who tackled problems such as homelessness, domestic violence, kids getting lost in hospitals because their tag fell off their ankle. And it teaches you to, instead of repeating something over and over again and hoping it gets better, how can you and your people go upstream to solve a problem permanently? Okay. So with that being said, which would you like?
I'm going to go with the second one. I have a pretty strong interest in psychology, and I think that is very parallel to what I'm learning right now in school. So I appreciate it. I'm gonna go ahead and open it up.
Open it up. So it's called The Gift of Fear by a guy named Gavin DeBecker. He owns a security company, and they typically, their ideal client is essentially the top 1%. Think actors, actresses, even the Secret Service hires them sometimes if they need extra help covering some sort of presidential event, sports players, musicians. And so the book is about half of it is real life case studies, and of course all the names are anonymous, but sort of what happened and how they resolved it. And the other half of the book is very heavy, as you said, into psychology, statistics, intuition. Yeah. Dude, it's just such a freaking eye-opening book. So Merry Christmas, and I hope you like it.
Thank you. David, I really appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Yeah, man, you're welcome. Thanks for being here. Yeah. All right, so give us a little update. What's been happening in the last 6 months?
Yeah, so, well, I guess I can start more recently. I just turned 21 last Friday. And, you know, I was able to go out with my friends in downtown Tulsa and see some of the nightlife. And so that was a great time. This semester was great. I just wrapped up the first semester of my junior year. So I have like 3 semesters left until I graduate, which I'm just like baffled by because it feels like, you know, yesterday I was just starting college. And just the amount of growth I feel like I've had in the last 2.5 years has just been astronomical. And, you know, I think that does come with the huge difference between being 18 years old versus 21. And so just learning, you know, a lot of stuff is changing very quickly, as well as the people around me and my friend group. I mean, all of us are completely different than we were 6 months ago, or 12 months ago, 18 months ago, 24 months ago. And so I think kind of just standing back and taking it all in and seeing like the process and the growth from that has been pretty big. And I'm looking forward to the future. I mean, I have 3 more semesters left, so.
Dude, it's going to fly by. It's going to fly. How quickly, does it feel like it's been 6 months since we last talked?
Not really. I mean, I guess I could say like on a day-to-day basis, just because quite a few things have happened or changed since then. You know, I experienced some loss in my family. I lost my grandma very suddenly this summer, like in early August or late July. Excuse me. Lost a dog, my mom's side, and, you know, 2 things that I wasn't expecting to happen, they just happen. Life happens, you know, so learning to deal with that, and just the impact it's had on my family, so.
Sorry to hear about that. Yeah, I remember your dog passing because you mentioned that the first time we met, and your mom had mentioned it too when I met her about a month or 2 later, but neither of you mentioned your grandma, so I'm sorry, man, that sucks. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. You know, So I guess I'll tell you a little bit of the story. So it was like a Sunday afternoon or like a Saturday afternoon, and my dad calls me and, you know, so my grandma was getting a heart procedure done that was basically going to help improve the quality of her life. I mean, it was a aortic valve replacement. So in her heart, she was having trouble with just getting circulation and blood flow all throughout her body, and it was making it really difficult for her to breathe and all of that. And so the surgery was scheduled, and everything had gone routine until, she had an allergic reaction to something, and, she broke out in hives and all of that, and it was okay. And the doctor made sure to make a note that they found out what caused her to have the allergic reaction. And then she went in for the aortic valve replacement. Somebody made a mistake and didn't sub out the stuff that caused the allergic reaction. And so she went into shock, basically, and they had to, bring her back, and just very difficult and hard to recover from something like that. I mean, she was 90 years old, and my dad called me and said, hey, I'm not sure how much more time grandma has, but, I'm just letting you know that. And, I was in Tulsa, which is 7.5 hours away from Austin, 7.5 hour drive. And I immediately packed everything up, got in my car and drove down to Austin. And I got there at like 11:30 PM at night. And my dad was like the only one at the hospital there left, and went and saw her, and then she passed a couple hours later. So I was glad that I was able to see her, and, she was able to recognize me and see me and all that, but it was just very difficult to see. And I'm glad that I was able to see her one last time. So,
yeah. Do you, have you ever seen, it might sound like I'm changing the subjects and just passing this over, and I'm not. Have you ever read this book by chance or heard of it?
I've not.
Okay.
The Daily Stoic? No, I've not.
So I just got it recently, and what I like about it is it's not meditation. I don't even know what to call it. It's essentially sayings from like Marcus Aurelius and just a bunch of people from a long time ago who wrote down things, and they put them all together in this book, and they're still relevant to this day. And I was debating if we might read today's and just talk about it. And given what you just said, I think we should. If you don't mind, this one's a little bit longer. So what I was thinking is we can take turns sort of school style, instead of me just reading at you for 4 minutes. So okay. I'll kick it off and then I'll turn it over to you. So today is December 20th. And the topic is the fear of death. The quote is from someone named Epictetus. I'm sorry, sir, if I butchered your name. And the quote is this: do you then ponder how the supreme of human evils, the surest mark of the base and cowardly, is not death, but the fear of death? I urge you to discipline yourself against such fear. Direct all your thinking, exercises, and reading this way, and you will know the only path to human freedom. So that's the first paragraph.
You just want me to continue reading here?
Right here.
Okay, yeah.
At the 2.
To steel himself before he committed suicide, rather than submit to Julius Caesar's destruction of the Roman Republic, the great Stoic philosopher Cato read a bit of Plato's Phaedo. In it, Plato writes, "It is the child within us that trembles before death. Death is scary because it is such an unknown. No one can come back and tell us what it is like. We are in the dark about it."
Childlike and ultimately ignorant as we are about death, there are plenty of wise men and women who can at least provide some guidance. There's a reason that the world's oldest people never seem to be afraid of death. They've had more time to think about it than we have, and they realized how pointless worrying was. There are other wonderful resources. Florida Scott Maxwell's Stoic Diary, during her terminal illness, "The measure of my days is one." Seneca's famous words to his family and friends, who had broken down and begged with his executioners, is another. Where Seneca gently chided them are your maxims of philosophy or the preparation of so many years' study against evils to come. Throughout philosophies, there are inspiring brave words and from brave men and women who can help us face this fear. Last paragraph's all yours.
There is another helpful consideration about death from the Stoics. If death is truly the end, then what is there exactly to fear? For everything from your fears to your pain receptors, to your worries and your remaining wishes, they will perish with you. As frightening as death may seem, remember, it contains within it the end of fear.
What do you think?
It's pretty good. It's interesting to, at least for myself, because I don't necessarily feel like I fear death, but I feel like a lot of people still do. And I think a lot of the fear that people have stems from them feeling like they haven't accomplished all they want to, or feel like there's still some things that they want to do. And like, I mean, my stance, at least feeling on death, is like, I could, driving back home today from the podcast, some freak accident could happen.
Right.
I mean, you never know. Things happen. The universe works in very mysterious ways. But my advice towards that would be do all that you can to basically accomplish what you want to do. You know, like I feel like if I died today, I would be happy with the things that I've accomplished so far because I'm doing everything in my power to be the person that I want to be. So.
Did your grandma, did she seem afraid at all when you were able to see her for those couple of hours?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, she had a pretty long life. She was 91 years old.
That's pretty darn good.
Yeah. She was alive for a pretty long time. She saw a lot of things. Is my dad's mom. And, you know, she loved everybody and was a huge tennis fan. She played tennis for a while when she was younger and loved watching tennis. And just always loved seeing her large family of grandchildren. And she had 3 children herself, and then those children had more kids. And so she, you know, was like the grandmother of the large family. And so I think she really felt fulfilled in that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was she pretty active as much as she could be throughout her life? Or especially like, I guess the last like 3, 4, 5, 10 years?
I wouldn't necessarily say that she was, because she kind of had some like physical health issues. She had a hip replacement, but had knee problems and some other things. And so it kind of limited her in terms of like what she was able to do physically. No, she wasn't really that active.
Sure. Gotcha. Yeah. My mom, prior to her getting her hip replacement, it was crazy what an impact it had on her. She basically wasn't able to walk. She could get to the bathroom. She could get food. So she could do the bare minimum to get around. But the cool thing about modern medicine, man, is after she had that hip replacement, at least in my mom's case, dude, she's running laps now, you know,
That's
not
awesome.
Literally, but she has a job that requires her to be on her feet 40 hours a week. And she's walking around and she's mobile. And it was crazy to see her go from basically not being able to walk to now a fully functioning human being again.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I think the relationship that I had with her, I made sure to give her time whenever, you know, I'd come back home from school, or, you know, I'd been gone for a while, and, you know, she ended up living with my dad half the time and then my uncle the other half. And I really enjoyed the conversations and the talks I had with her, because her husband, my dad's dad, passed when he was like 40 or 45. I mean, my dad was like 8 years old whenever his dad died. And so, you know, she always talked very highly of my grandfather, and, you know, he was a very successful individual. He apparently had personal contact with, I think it was LBJ when he was president, and he had meetings with him about the Vietnam War and some other stuff, and like was very connected in the insurance business, and was, I mean, I was very impressed from the things that she had said. And, you know, obviously I'm not 100% sure on the truth of that, but I believe that they're true.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to see why she would have a reason to lie about something like that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's cool. I want to talk a little bit about leadership today, because I don't meet a lot of people that want to be a leader necessarily and say it out loud and want to be good at it. You know, it's not something that I personally have come across. Even thinking about the 50 plus guests that have been on this show, I don't know outside of you if any one of them, including myself, are looking for some sort of leadership role in life. Did you want to be president of Pike?
Initially, not really. You know, I took on a role very early, like my freshman year, where I was like the pledge class president, where I was like basically the leader of my group of guys that were in my class, my age group. And that was, you know, basically just me standing up and being like, okay, well, no one else wants to do it, I'll do it. And so I stepped ahead and did it. And, you know, there weren't really that many responsibilities, and it wasn't that, you know, taxing of a role. But, you know, I thought about more what I wanted to do and what I wanted to get out of, you know, the 4 years that I had there, and, you know, the relationships and things that I had with people. And I just thought, you know, if I can do something and, you know, I care about it, why not go for it? You know, like, why, you know, if I feel like I could do a good job at it, why not?
Why do you think they elected you?
I think a lot of it has to do with the credibility that I've been able to show in the past with other positions. I take a lot of pride in the work that I do. I like to put on good events, and I'm very keen on having integrity. You say what you're going to do, or you do what you say you're going to do. Sorry. And, I made some promises in the position that I was in a year ago, which was like a vice president role. And so I was in charge of like all of our social functions, our philanthropy, community service, public relations stuff, our intramurals and all of that. And like, I spent a lot of time working with those other people that were in those chair positions, and, was able to be successful in the things that we were doing. And I think that I was able to show at least that I can take on responsibility, and I cared about the organization as a whole, and people trusted me to make those decisions. Yeah. So I think that's why.
I'm going to read you a statement that I got off of the fraternity's website. We were talking before, Mike, and already found out that the website that I found was a little bit outdated. So if you haven't heard this yet, or if it seems like it's slightly off from, if maybe you guys have modified it in the last couple years, I apologize. But hopefully it still stands somewhat true. Pi Kappa Alpha sets the standard for integrity, which you just mentioned, intellect, and achievements for its members. They were founded June 6, 1936, and in recent years have garnered many awards, including the highest award given to Greek organizations, which is the Circle of Excellence. They won this coveted award 6 times between 2011 and 2018. You mentioned to me before we hit record, they did win it again in 2021. Would one of your goals this year be that Pike win the Circle of Excellence again? Is that on your radar?
Definitely. I think so. We actually won an award from the National Fraternity this year as well. And then we had another individual who, our president, the year whenever he was elected halfway through my freshman year, and then halfway through my sophomore year, we switched to another person. But he had a year-long term, and at the same convention where we won like the chapter award for like the top 10% of chapters, he won an award for like the best undergraduate Pike in the nation. And so there's like 15,000 people that they could have picked from, and it was him. Yes. And so the chapter that I'm at the University of Tulsa, we've won out of the last, I want to say 8 or 9 people that have won that award, 6 of them or 7 of them have been from the University of Tulsa. So like the best undergraduate Pike in the nation out of the last 10 times, 8 or 7 of them have been from Tulsa, which is pretty crazy. We're a pretty strong chapter, I would say.
Is that a big like a selling point for the university specifically?
I wouldn't say the university specifically. I would say for like when we go through Rush or whenever we're trying to recruit people to join our fraternity, that's a selling point. It's like, we have a lot of very high achieving people, guys that want to be successful, people that care about where they're headed in life. And, a lot of the stigma behind fraternity and sorority life is like, oh, you just drink on the weekends and, you party a lot and people get hazed and all this other stuff. But I think something that we like to focus on at least is like development of the members. And, like people say, you're as good as your 5 closest friends.
Right.
And I think whenever your whole friend group of 50 or 60 people are high achieving, it makes you better. So.
Yes. I would say that, yeah, if you have 3 to 5, I've heard that saying in books, podcasts, and that's awesome if you can achieve that, because that's hard. Yeah. But if you can be somewhere where you have 50, 60, my goodness, yeah. Talk about elevating your life. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to see post-graduation, how you keep that going, because I'm assuming there's also a lot of people similar to you where they don't live there. They traveled there specifically. So once you graduate, many of you will probably either get jobs in other cities, might move back to their hometown. So that'll be interesting to see what that transition looks like for you and how Definitely. You keep your social circle strong.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've made lifelong friends, and especially the guys that, are like in my pledge class, the guys that are my age. I mean, those guys, I'm going to be going to their weddings and they'll be at mine, and, we'll be friends for the rest of our lives. I mean, those are some pretty strong bonds that we've made, and it's awesome that all of us are trying to be as successful as we can be in our paths in life. I mean, I have friends that are wanting to be doctors and engineers and be in finance and other stuff like that, and it's just like it's very interesting because I'll have a very strong network of people that I grew up with, basically, that will be at the top of whatever they're trying to achieve eventually.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. You and me were in the gym. Yeah, we've been in the gym the last couple days at the same time together. I got to get a workout in with you. That was awesome. Thank you again for letting me do hamstrings with you.
Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man, it was fun. I haven't had a workout part. I do have Will, which I mentioned, but our schedules don't line up, so we miss each other a lot. We maybe get in one a week, but I do like working out with other people because it's weird, man. I hold myself more accountable when I'm with someone. I don't know why. I allow myself to slack off when I'm by myself. Not every workout, but there are definitely days when I'm like, man, that could have been so much better. I just didn't push myself. But if there's someone else there, even if the other dude isn't saying anything, I just feel like oh, now I have a set of eyes on me, so can't be slacking off today. Do you feel that at all, or you seem like you're pretty intrinsically motivated to get a good workout in, whether you have someone with you or not?
I think so. I think there are definitely days whenever I'll walk in there and I'm like, man, I'm just dragging ass and okay, I'll get through it, whatever. And and part of that is embracing, in order to have those awesome workouts where you walk out feeling like $1 million, you got the best pump, you hit a PR on, whatever lift you're trying to do. And those awesome workouts, it's a spectrum. You have to have the bad workouts to have the good ones too.
Right.
Because it's not like you're just going to walk in and have a good workout every day. But part of that is having the discipline to understand and stick with it, even if you have a string of bad workouts. I mean, I've been working out consistently since I was 12 years old. And so understanding that will help you continue to carry on doing this every day. It just becomes so ingrained in you.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing you mentioned to me is that your next competition will probably be in 2024, 2025, somewhere in that time frame. And part of the reason is that because you want to be focused on your role of president, focus on school. Obviously, you're still working out, you're still dieting. It's not like you're completely setting it aside, but you're not going to be prepping for any competition specifically over the next 6 months. This may seem like a silly question, but I wanted to ask it. Why is Pikes in school so important to you that you would set bodybuilding, which is another huge passion of yours, not on the back burner, but it is sort of being set aside a little bit?
Yeah. I want to be able to give as much as I can to this group of guys, especially because, I made a year-long commitment to be in this position. And I want to be able to do the best that I can. And I think, everyone has the same 24 hours in the day, and it's bodybuilding or, fitness. And at least the way that I look at it is kind of like passive investing. You go to the gym every day, you get your workouts in, you get your meals in and all that. And it's pretty easy for me to do that and also still be focused on my school stuff and my gym stuff, and my Pike stuff. But whenever I'm in prep mode, for a competition, everything goes out the window besides bodybuilding. That's all that I care about. It's the tunnel vision. It's getting all my meals in. It's having the best workout I can. It's going through my posing sessions and getting everything ready and crisp. And, every day is just the same routine. Wake up at the same time. Go do the same cardio or whenever that changes each week. Be in contact with my coach, all of that. Every ounce of what I have, my mental capacity goes towards that.
Yeah.
And so being able to, pull back on that a little bit and then use that focus and that tunnel vision, that clarity, and pull a little bit of that into school, into Pike and all of that, I'm still able to do off-season bodybuilding and still do all of that along with school and Pike stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we won't go deep into it because we covered it somewhat extensively in your first episode. But I remember too, you made a joke on the episode and you apologized to your girlfriend and your family because you're like, sometimes when you're dieting and everything's that strict, naturally you're going to be a little grumpy. Anyone would be, because you're just putting your body through so much. And so if you throw that factor into it while you're also doing all those other things, that's a lot of pressure. So I think that's cool that you have the ability to figure out, this is how I'm going to balance things out, but also still keep bodybuilding on front of mind and just wait a little bit until your next competition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think at least for myself, if I'm too heavily focused on something for too long, I definitely get burnt out. And, me being able to do something else besides bodybuilding in the 2.5 year span between competitions has allowed me to step back and see the big picture and be like, yes, I do want to do bodybuilding, but it's not something that just is going to happen in a day.
Right.
It takes years. And so I'm going to spend this 2.5 year gap that I have between competitions doing all these other things to help advance like my earning potential, help advance the intellectual capacity that I have, the things that I'm trying to learn and understand. Because like, I don't want to be one dimensional.
Right.
I don't want to just be a bodybuilder. I don't want to just be someone that's an accountant or in finance. I want to be multidimensional.
Right.
Because I find a lot of things interesting. So that's why I try and pursue those other things outside of the time that I have whenever I'm not doing bodybuilding competitions.
Yeah. If you don't want to answer this, or if you don't think you should answer this, keep in mind we can edit anything out. But one question I wanted to ask you, and thinking of that story I told you about going upstream, is there anything as president that you would like to do to take the fraternity upstream? Is there anything that you think should be modified, changed? Any area of improvement that you would like to personally see change in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, there's always things that could be different or change, and something that I've come to realize is like, there's a quote that a lot of people have like in the fraternities, like, oh, the house isn't what it used to be. And it's like, well, okay, the group of friends that you're around and what the environment of the fraternity is not going to be the same as it was your freshman year when you first came in to halfway through your junior year or your senior year. It's a different group of people every year, different environment, different things happening. And so I think something that we've been able to improve on, at least like the group of guys that I'm with, as well as what I've seen the improvement from my freshman year to now, is a lot more people care about their professional development, going and getting internships and job offers and doing things to put on their resume. That's cool now, instead of getting blacked out drunk or destroying stuff or, just like doing, and like, not that we don't like to have fun and party, and we still do all of that, but just the environment and what we think is important to us has changed a lot. And I mean, I'm going to continue to see it change. We have a freshman that was at a United Nations conference in Geneva a couple weeks ago, and is like already super connected, and which is awesome, because that's someone that I never thought that I would have a connection with, and now he's a part of my friend group. So.
You know what's interesting is back in California, I have a friend who is around your age, and he's going to the University of Nevada, Reno, I want to say. And he said something very similar to me that you just said before you left, that he wants his fraternity, I forget the name of the chapter, Brody, I apologize, but he wants the fraternity to not be all about drinking and partying. Yeah. He personally, the last time I talked with him, hadn't drank at all. He wanted to see what it would be like to go through college more sober than not. And so his first semester, he didn't have a single drink of anything, didn't smoke any weed. Another one of his goals was that any parties that were sort of being hosted through the school or through the fraternity, that any females that attended felt safe, felt like it was a good environment where they could come relax, and whether it's networking professionally or socially, whatever it is. But what I think is interesting, that here are two young men on either side of the country that had a very similar goal in mind. And I think it's if there's two people saying it and thinking it, I think there's probably more. Yeah. And that's something I love about this podcast, and the more people I talk to, is one thing I'm picking up amongst Gen Z is that you guys do seem to have a healthier mindset in some ways. And it seems like you're not necessarily chasing that thing that maybe my generation was. Because when I went to college, this was a while ago, a decade ago or something, like that was the things. A lot of the people just were chasing the next party, and I got caught up in that because I was raised in a really Christian home. So it was like, yeah, let's fucking party. But it just seems like there's definitely a shift in that mindset. And I hope that there's some more people your age that come on the show from different areas of the U.S. because I would like to see if this is something that's sort of common amongst your generation and people your age.
It might be common, but at the same time, it also may not be. I think that, obviously we still have, like I said, social functions and all of that, but at least like my personal, how I feel about it. My freshman year, I partied. I had a lot of fun. I went out and did, had all the fun that I had as a freshman, like I embraced it because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in college now. And like, I get to do all these things. And I think the thought process in my mind changed whenever I realized, like, okay, like if I really hone in and focus now at like 19, 20, 21 years old, I can set myself up to, by the time when I'm 30, 35 years old, I'm way ahead of everybody else.
Right.
So starting to get ahead now, that way I don't get left behind.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people kind of like, they see college as like, oh, it's this opportunity to party, and like, these are the best years of my life. I'm going to make sure that I enjoy them. That way, whenever I'm in the workforce, then I can't do all these things that I wanted to do in college, then, you know, I'll have all those memories and whatever. But if you start now, you can set yourself up to be so much better off. And it's the sacrifice. I mean, it's like sacrifice for bodybuilding. Like, for example, whenever we have a party, I work the front door basically. And I'm with, you know, some of the other guys that are also on the executive board, and like, we'll be, you know, out on the front, not drinking, not partying, not doing what everybody else is basically, and trying to make sure like everything is going okay, like crowd control in case anything happens in the party, and like, you know, if we have to call campus security or whatever, make sure everything goes over smoothly. But that aligns with my bodybuilding goals, because if I'm drinking multiple nights of the week, I'm not going to have the progress and recovery, and I'm not going to do as well in what I'm doing for bodybuilding as I would if I wasn't drinking, or if I wasn't staying up late, or if I wasn't doing all these things. And so it's a sacrifice.
Yes, agreed. It definitely is a sacrifice. But to your point too, you're a lot healthier because of it. Your mind's a lot more active. Your wallet's a little bit healthier. Yeah. So like, it's funny that we use that term sacrifice, because like, it is what it isn't. And let me ask you, like, when you're working the door and you're there with all your friends, you're probably still having a good time. Like, you're not miserable, right? You're like, God, I have to work this fucking door. Like, I'm sure that's not your mentality.
No. And you know, I think about, I'm glad that I'm doing this instead of what's going on, because I get to wake up tomorrow morning and then go work out and have a good workout because I'm not hungover. So,
yeah, and the way you work out, dude, if I could not have done that workout hungover. You need your mind awake, you need your body awake for the intensity that you go. Yeah, you can't be living that kind of lifestyle. So, the last question I sort of wanted to ask you around school is, you told me that you are going to Newark next year. Norway. Sorry, I got the first letter right, and that was about it. Okay. You're going to Norway. How did that trip come about, and what do you hope to get out of it?
Yeah, so I guess I'll give you some backstory. So, please. 7 or 8 months ago, it was like last May, like right after the semester ended, in the spring, I went to Scotland with like 12 or 15 students and some professors for like a 10 or 11, 12-day trip. We were in Edinburgh, and then we went to what other city did we go to? We were in Aberdeen. So we were in Aberdeen for the majority of it, and then we went to Edinburgh also. But it was like a study abroad trip, and we got to sit in on lectures and learn about how Scotland and the UK is making a shift towards renewable energy. And I mean, they have like the net zero emissions by 2050. And so we got to hear about, you know, all the things that they're doing now with like wave energy, wind energy, and all of that. And so learning how Scotland produces their energy was basically the majority of the trip. We got to go to the Port of Aberdeen. We went to Balmoral Castle, where the Queen would summer. And we got to go to quite a few other places. We went to St. Andrews, the birthplace of golf. I got a shirt and a hat, and it was like a, you know, experience of a lifetime. I mean, my dad was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you get to go to St. Andrews." He's like, "I wish I could go there." And so it was really cool to see all that, and it was like a really awesome trip. I really liked Scotland. But anyways, back to the Norway part.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did you see any cultural differences between Scotland and what you've seen here in Austin and Oklahoma?
Yeah, I saw quite a few differences. The first one being the people, on average, are a lot smaller. So
like shorter, or
yes.
like body? Okay.
Stature, smaller, shorter, not as large. Men and women on average are smaller in the UK, and I think that's just because they're probably not eating the same foods or have their bloodlines and the genetics and stayed more over there. But Scotland is very green, rains a lot there, and the city we were in, Aberdeen, was like it's called the Granite City. It was carved into like a mountainside or a hillside, and so all the buildings there were gray. And then you also add on that it was gray all the time because it was cloudy. And so there's very pale people because the sun's not out very much. And it gets really cold in the winter. And then the UK is not really known for its food. And so there were, McDonald's, KFC, all the American fast food chains. And then I think fish and chips are pretty much like what the UK is known for. So the food there wasn't really that good. It was basically what we have for American food.
Gotcha.
People were a lot smaller. People were nicer, I feel like, than, what I would see in like a traditional large American city. And there's like this infatuation with American people that other people have from across the world. I mean, like when we went clubbing a few nights because the drinking age there is 18, and we talked to people our own age, and, they immediately recognize like, oh, you're American? Because they could hear like our voice, right?
Yep.
We don't have the Scottish accent.
Yep.
We're like, yeah. And they're like, so where are you from? Are you from New York? And I'm like, no. And I would say I'm from Texas because I'm from Texas, and like their face would light up like, oh my gosh, you're from Texas? Like, are you a cowboy? Like, do you,
are you a cowboy?
Right. They like, do you own a ranch? Do you ride horses and stuff? And I'm like, no, like that's not what it's about. And so those are kind of like the cultural differences. And like they ask about Donald Trump a lot, and do you have guns, and just like all the stereotypical stuff that you would see like on, American media or what the rest of the world basically sees, or the stereotypes about the United States.
That's funny that they default to New York. I found out now that I've traveled a little bit over the throughout the U.S. I didn't know it was a real stereotype that people think that if you live in California, you live on a
California,
beach. Yeah. I've got that 5, 6, 7 times. They're like, oh, you must have a beach house there. I'm like, dude, the closest beach is like 2.5 hours away, and it's a shit beach. You got to drive like you get 6, 7 hours to San Diego or a few other places to get like a quality beach that you want to hang out at and whatnot. But that's funny. That they have that just that inquisitive nature about us.
Yeah. And so back to the Norway trip.
Yes.
It's a very similar trip to the Scotland trip, except it's in Norway. So we're going to learn about how Norway produces their energy and other stuff. And we're going to Stavanger. I think that's how you pronounce it. But it's like a port city in Norway. It's really pretty. We're going to go to like the Black Rock Wind Farm and some other places. And the itinerary isn't 100% set out yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. I had a great time in Scotland, and so I'm looking forward to more international travel.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
I want to put a pause on my stuff for a minute. You brought a couple of topics with you.
I did.
I remember one of them, and when I go into I'm glad you wrote them down, because if you're anything like me in podcast mode, man, my brain is working, but it's not working. Let's tackle the AI one first. What's sort of on what's the specific topic? Let's just start with that. What's the specific topic that you told me?
Yeah, so I have just written down AI integration into everything. And so what I mean by that, basically, everybody knows about ChatGPT and Bing, Google. All of these tech companies are producing and putting out these like AI chat models and language models, basically, because OpenAI that created ChatGPT is like revolutionizing, or at least like the starting point for AI. And so like what I said, I think off camera earlier, is that we're like in the very beginning of the AI tech boom. I mean, AI is going to be integrated into everything. Every industry is going to have AI stuff. Tons of jobs are going to be replaced. And, professors are already trying to integrate stuff into their teaching materials with AI. So it's a tool that's not going to go away, and it's only going to get smarter. We're going to continue to use it more, and it'll be, before we know it, integrated into everything. And so if anyone listening here has an idea for a business model, something that they would like to make more efficient or whatever, to integrate AI into it, you could be the next Mark Zuckerberg, or, I don't know, big CEO for tech firm. If you have one good idea that creates something that revolutionizes technology, but don't wait, because someone else will probably produce it pretty soon.
It's interesting because I listened to a few podcasts on ChatGPT when I first heard about it, and to your point about it being integrated into everything, I remember some professors were like, some of the I don't want to say it's an issue because it's not an issue, but like they have students that are writing essays now with ChatGPT, and then you have companies like mine who their directive so far has been don't use it for anything, don't integrate it with anything. And to your point, it's interesting because like universities are going to have to figure out how do we pivot and how do we integrate this in. Accounting firms like mine are going to have to figure out how is this going to be part of our lives now. But I think and I don't care if anyone from my company hears me saying it, they're going to have to figure out like, how are we all going to work with this? Because if we just avoid it and say,
you're going to be behind the curve.
Right. And I think it could be useful because in accounting, there's so many things that are very monotonous that we're having our interns doing, and ChatGPT or whatever the program is could just do that for us, and the interns aren't going to get replaced. There are still so many things about accounting that it would be very hard for some of those things to be taken over from a computer. Maybe one day. Computers are getting pretty smart, but there's some stuff you just need a human eye on it.
Exactly.
But yeah, man, I just think I think it's funny to see how some people, I guess with anything new, you're going to have that group of people that dive in and they're sort of going to be the trailblazers. You have that other group of people who sort of avoid it because they're scared of change. And then you have everyone else who sort of sits back and watches.
Yeah. This is very similar to like, I want to say early 90s or early 2000s, like with the beginning of the internet. People were, I think, so the internet was actually originally created by the U.S. military. It was created, I'm not sure why, but I
did not know that.
Yeah. And a lot of people were like, oh, the internet's not going to be this big thing and it doesn't matter. And like, why are people focused on stuff? And anyways, this AI is going to be integrated into everything. But so talk about an example like with accounting, right? So if you have a program or something that can eliminate the potential for human error and is also able to have adherence to the tax code, can depending on the level of complexity, understand your spending habits, the things that your high level of income and all of that, you could have the perfect accountant, because accountants are smart because they can understand how to not game the system, but adhere to the tax code, write certain things off, and basically help you save money on taxes.
Right.
If you have a good enough accountant, they can make sure that you don't pay as much money as you should, which I know that sounds bad, but a lot of very wealthy people, their best person that they hire, the best money that they spend is on a good accountant.
Right.
And so if you can have something like a program or whatever that is just monitoring your bank statements or seeing how you spend your money, and then it does all of your computing for you, files your tax returns, does all of that, adheres to the tax code, there's no need for a human to do that.
You know, it'd be crazy as you were talking, you know, if there is a program that was even made where it runs the tax returns through all 50 states and then tells you which state would be the most, like the least taxable, like where would you save the most money? Yep. We had a guy that was living in California who has real estate all over the nation, all over the globe. He has some places in Europe too. And his tax return is about 500 tax returns that all fold up into his one individual. And he was living in California. And in 2017 or 2018, the partner told him that the best advice they could give him is to move to Florida. And so, and we showed him a hypothetical, and the guy ended up saving like 38 million. The number was ridiculous. Yeah. So if you had a program that could do that, where you just press a button and it does, you know, the accountant presses the button, and then I could say, Jackson, this is what your taxes are going to look like if you stay in Texas. If you wanted to permanently stay in Oklahoma, this is what it would like. That in and of itself, like, some accountant, go do that. You'll be rich.
It's very possible, and will probably be created in the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
how involved in it are you? Do you listen to podcasts, articles? Like, do you do much, for lack of a better term, research?
So I'm subscribed to like an AI newsletter. That's really all of all that I know really much about for AI stuff. Still very much in the beginning stages and like what they would call the Wild West, just because like the regulations, people don't even know how to regulate this stuff. Right. Because how do you regulate something you don't even understand, compared to like with the Constitution, right? Or something, a bill that was created in 1776, and like the governing body, we don't have the laws and the legislation yet to even regulate that stuff. So it is the Wild West basically with AI.
So what would you like to see it used for, or how, if you could somehow integrate it into your life, how would you do that?
I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of the AI and tax models and stuff like that. I think it'll be used very heavily in finance, just because you know, there is a side of finance like stock trading and all of that that's very mathematical. A lot of people that are quantitative, like in quantitative positions, or like computer science people that are coding for these big financial firms that are doing transactions within like the 10th of a second. If you have a technology or like an AI, for example, that can run those mathematical models faster than what a human can do, or like what a human can do on Excel, then you can have a firm that's able to make trades more efficiently and quicker than what a human can do. So I would like to see something in the finance world, at least. I mean, like, I'm a finance major, and I really like finance and economics and stuff like that. And I think that we're going to see, like, if you, excuse me, if you don't integrate AI into the technology and what you're trying to do with your business, whether that's like you're working for a big corporation or even a smaller firm, like I said, you're going to be left behind. So
yeah. Well, one thing I need to do is run my show notes through ChatGPT or some system. But the reason I haven't done it yet is because I like writing them. There is first off, it only takes me like 10 to 20 minutes, so it's not that big of a deal, and I only have to do it once a week. But something I just enjoy it, and I think that I was hearing some people talk about it with authors too, like, oh, is this going to replace authors? But at the end of the day, I don't think authors are writing books necessarily for the money. That's a side effect. They enjoy writing. So writing's still going to be around. People are still going to do manual show notes. If I do run it through and it does it even better than I do, and I notice that maybe there's a spike in downloads because it was able to put in some keywords that I didn't know people are Googling, sure, I would use it. And then I'm saving 20 minutes once a week. But I'm curious to see, just because I'm in podcasts and I do have my hand in accounting as well, how it impacts those two industries specifically. But dude, we're both so young, and since we will, like you said, aside from us, accidentally tripping off a sidewalk and getting hit by a bus, it's going to be incredible to see where just everything goes over the next 60 years, because the internet was made in my lifetime. I think it was like 98, 99 when like we got AOL, I want to say. I'll have to fact check that before I publish this episode, but it's already come so far. Like you said, the military created it for some purpose, and now every single human with the phone has the ability to access an extraordinary amount of things. So I feel like, not to sound cliche, but we're just seeing the tip of this, whatever the iceberg is.
Yeah, and I want to say, like, there's no substitute for human creativity and being, having a spontaneous mind and understanding like how to create art, right? Yes, you can have somebody prompt an AI engine into making a piece of art, or it can generate something if you ask it to, that would be like a human piece of art, but there's still not going to be at least in my opinion, a technology or artificial intelligence that can create something like Frank Sinatra.
Right.
Or something like Mariah Carey, like for Christmas music, for example, or for like music that just is art. Art cannot be replicated without some form of human touch, I feel like. And I mean, at least with bodybuilding is an art form, in my opinion. And along with, painting, music, all of that. Sure, it can be created artificially, but it still won't be as good as the real thing.
Movies.
Yeah.
Podcasting.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it won't. Yeah, there will be things that definitely stand the test of time. I mean, even just the book that we read from, that stuff was written hundreds of years ago, and it's still applicable today in 2023. So, yeah. Do you have anyone in your life, even if you only know them a little bit, that is tackling this in a Zuckerberg type mindset, where they're just obsessed with it and just constantly have their ear to the ground on everything that is AI and whatnot, or no?
Not necessarily that I know of. I have a couple friends and one of my brothers that are studying or studied computer science, as like right now. Or I mean, my oldest or one of my brothers graduated, was a comp sci major at University of Texas, and I mean, I haven't talked to him about this stuff, but I'm sure that he has a lot of information on it. But my friends that are studying computer science right now, I mean, they're using it and integrating it into like the assignments and the things that they're doing with their work in school. I mean, I'm a business major and I'm using it. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like for my one of my legal classes, instead of reading a 120-page case study over a court case, I can copy and paste the document into ChatGPT or Google Bard or whatever other AI service, and in 15 seconds, it'll give me every piece of information that I need for the case study. I don't have to read 120 pages.
What did it condense it down to?
Basic summarization of it, having key points that you're supposed to extract from it, and then put it all together on like a one-page document, basically.
And then did it give you enough information that whatever that class was requiring, you were able to fulfill, and you had enough knowledge and whatnot?
Yeah, basically. And if it doesn't give you enough knowledge, you can just ask it for more. Give me some more details. Tell me more about this. Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
It'll articulate it very quickly.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What a time saver.
It's a tool. It's making things more efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are a lot of your classmates using it, or are there some? Yeah. I wonder who in the world is just like deep diving into this, where this is just all they think about 90 hours a week and they're just obsessed with it. And
I'm sure there are plenty of people.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting. Like I said, I mean, like I said, it's the Wild West. We don't really have much regulations on it. And so I think a lot of the concern, at least from, like you said, your company, or from at least like the United States government, is like data protection, confidentiality. What are people putting into these models and these AI chatbots? Because if you're giving it all this information and how machine learning works, it's getting smarter every day. It's understanding the inputs and all of that. Like it's already pretty smart, but it's only getting smarter the more that we use it. For a long time, I would say at least like for my first 2 years of school, I was just like, okay, let's get this homework done. Let's get it done. I don't care about it. I just want to go to the gym and lift, and like didn't care at all about the stuff that I was learning. I was just like, I want to get it done, get it over with. And this semester, I, mainly because of one of my professors, but I'm getting into my more major specific classes, I now have more of an appreciation for the things that I'm being taught and trying to learn. And so instead of me like just trying to rush through it and get it done with, I'm now appreciating learning about this stuff because I actually now find it interesting. So I've taken some of that focus that I've been able to, that tunnel vision focus for bodybuilding, and translate it into my finance stuff now. And so like I'm reading about finance stuff. I'm doing outside research on stuff. I just picked up an internship that I'll be doing for this semester for a consulting firm in Tulsa. And I'm very interested in the work that I'm going to be doing because of the person I'll be working under. I mean, that's the guy's pretty successful, and I'd like to be, I'd like to hopefully do some of the things that he's done. So,
tell us who is it?
So
we don't have to talk about that.
No, it's not like secretive or anything like that. I'm trying to remember his first name. I think it's Charles Woodrum. But he created like a business consulting firm in Tulsa in like 1984. He's been CFO for a few companies. I was messaged on Handshake, which is just like a job listing app.
Right.
And it was just like, hey, you should apply for this office intern position. So I did. And I went and did the interview, and it was an interview with, the founding partner. And I was just like, oh, okay, like this is pretty cool. And brought my resume, and he was pretty impressed. He was like, oh, I was president of my fraternity and all that. And very nice guy, 75, 80 years old, I think. I mean, he's got a lot of knowledge, and basically was just like, I have these business deals, and doing research on them is taking away time from specific things I could be doing for these deals. And so I kind of need an intern or someone that can help me do the background research for me instead of myself doing it. And so that's the position I'll be doing.
Gotcha. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. It's next summer, you said, or when is it?
So it's actually going to be during this semester, and then definitely like probably during the summer as well, full time. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it'll be like 10 hours a week just during the semester.
Okay. Good. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you find that you sort of naturally were able to focus on school easier because the topics were more interesting to you, or was there any kind of shift in discipline, how you studied that you also saw yourself doing over the last couple of months?
You know, I've always been able to get my work done and do school stuff, just being disciplined in that and like getting it done with, you know, like eating my vegetables, basically. That's how school was for a long time for me. It was just like, I'll get it done. Doesn't matter. I'll, you know, make sure I'm going to get good grades. I care about it. But it wasn't until very recently that I actually had some appreciation for it and felt interested in it.
Yeah, I remember there were some classes in college as well that were general education requirements that I definitely powered through because it was just it was boring. Like I had a history writing class I had to take, and for me, history, this might be a terrible thing to say out loud, but it doesn't fascinate me that much. You know, you're never going to catch me reading a history book. You know, I'd rather be reading stuff like the book I gave you, the book we read from, and things of that nature. But I'm glad that you found that focus. I'm glad that you're seeing yourself get more engaged, and hopefully that just makes the next 3 semesters all that much more better as you wrap up school. Oh, that's such a weird thing to say as you wrap up school, but it's going to happen really in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I mean, I feel like I have a pretty strong interest in like economic history, at least. I mean, I asked my dad if he had some books that, because my dad's worked in finance and investment banking and other stuff, and asked him if he had some books he'd recommend for me to read, and just because, you know, I had some interest in stuff, and so he handed me a few days ago, and I started reading this one that he handed to me. It's called Devil Takes the Hindmost, and it's at least from what I've been reading so far, is it started off with like the Roman Empire and their economic principles, and then talked about like tulip mania in the 1600s. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it was like kind of the first commodity craze for an item that didn't have much intrinsic value. So like take Bitcoin, for instance. No gold backing. People are either like super into it. Oh my gosh, I have all my money in Bitcoin. I'm going to be rich, get rich really quickly. Or they're like, I'm not touching that. That is sketchy. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not going to touch it. But the tulip mania craze was basically, it started as like a status symbol, and then out of nowhere, people were just buying tulip seeds for like 1,200 pounds. And it started to become this commodity that was traded for, you know, ox and food and houses and also, and it was just like crazy that people were trading these purple flowers for all of these other high value things. But it's interesting, you know, I find it pretty interesting.
Yeah. Is there any economy, whether it's a city, a state, a time in history that you just described one, but that in your opinion was the most efficient, fascinating, or that just sort of jumped out at you as interesting or fascinating?
Yeah. So like at one point, I think it was either 16 or 1700s, Amsterdam was like the economic capital of the world, which is pretty cool. And, you know, there were people doing options contracts and trading stock basically in, like these companies that were treasure hunting for pirate ships in like the 1700s. So that's also another part of the book that I've been reading, only like 50 pages in, but I found that pretty interesting that, you know, I had no idea that Amsterdam was at one point the economic capital of the world. And you could take stock in a company that was hunting treasure. So
there's a guy that's going to come on the show in 2024. We're having a hard time nailing down a date and time just because he travels all of the world doing 2 things: hunting for treasure and doing, he gets hired to do documentaries about haunted houses.
That's awesome.
And so when we connected, it was the day before he was leaving for a trip. But the haunted house one, that makes sense to me. You know, we have so much shows and TV that, of course, you know, that's going to make money right there. But I'm really fascinated to see the angle of how he finds out about this treasure, it just like, is it just in books? Or, like,
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see. He'll be an interesting one for sure, because that's just, you don't meet a lot of treasure hunter ghost chasers in 2023.
So has he been successful? Has he found treasure?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe I'll have to join him. I don't know.
Dude, I want to.
That's awesome.
I told him, I was like, if you're ever allowed to bring a person on the haunted house show, like, give me a camera and just tell me to hold it and where to point. Like, that'd be pretty sick. But he was telling me some stories on the phone, and I won't go into them, but just some of the things he's experienced. It's just crazy to. It's insane. Just some of the stuff. So I will let you know when that one airs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
What else? I'll pop open that phone real quick. Let me give him a read, because then I'll retain him a little bit better and know when to pop them in and what we're going to talk about here. All right, we'll definitely talk about internal reflections at the end. Okay. I want to save that. This is a good segue. So 2024. Have we talked about some of your goals yet? I know we sort of talked about them abstractly.
A little bit at the gym. But yeah, we can go ahead and do that. So for 2024, one of my goals is to start reading more, and I've already started doing that.
Good.
I mean, like, I hate the term New Year's resolution, because it's like, why would you wait until the new year to start something when you could just start doing it now?
Right.
So start reading more books. Trying to think of some more. Why don't you give me some more while I think about?
I'm in the same boat as you, that I have some things that I was telling you about in the gym that are not happening because it's December. They're happening because of just growth. The podcast is going to be needed. It's going to need a new platform to be housed on in 2024, and so that is a change that I'm excited about, just because it's going to make everything run a little bit more efficiently. Even some of the stuff that we had going on before we hit record, I think it'll help with that. In addition to that, I'm really excited to start reaching out to some what would be considered, like, quote unquote bigger guests, or maybe people who their time is sensitive enough that they have to pick and choose what podcasts they show on, what interviews they do. And I think I know that the platform is big enough now that we can start snagging some bigger guests, which means bigger reach. And that excites me, because I know that as those guests come on, the audience will look at past episodes and they'll find ones like yours, and they'll be inspired by even what you just said about, like, why wait to start acting for a certain age until post-college. And so I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think that you are a natural born leader, man, and that your mind is in a really healthy spot. And at the end of the day, I didn't know why I wanted to start this podcast. I just knew I wanted to sit down and start talking with people. And now that we're 50 plus episodes in, I think that there's a lot of hidden gems in here of people who are like yourself, who are not celebrities, who are not necessarily well known, but you just bring so much to the table, and that it will help people start shifting their mindset in some direction. So I don't want the bigger guests because I want myself to be famous. I don't want to be famous. I've heard Rogan and some other people talk about how their lives have changed and how they start. Yeah. Even as you read The Gift of Fear, fame, there's a lot that comes with it. People might be like, oh, I want to be an influencer. I want to be known by the world. And at the end of the day, man, like, I love my family. And if this podcast did become a big thing, when it becomes a big enough thing that we're getting 1 million downloads a month, I'm going to have my family not concerned, but, like, I'm definitely going to stop talking about, like, where they live, or, just stuff, because you're going to have some crazies coming after you. But that was sort of a long way of saying that, with that one of my goals in 2024 is just the continued growth on the back end with technology, on the front end with the people that come on the show. And for myself as a person, I think I'll be curious what your thoughts are on this. I'm very hard on myself, and I need to allow myself to just, I think in some ways it's good. In some ways it's drive, like we've talked about so many times. Because I'm hard on myself, I'm pushing myself to edit a little bit better, to make the show notes better, to find quality guests, even in my day job with recruiting. So there's a part of it that pushes me, And then there's a part of it where it's like, I judge myself a lot, and I know that's not always healthy, to a point where I've even thought in 2024, should I get an outside opinion? I have a lot of friends that go to counseling, and maybe even just get 12 sessions with someone and talk through some stuff and get an outside opinion other than trying to fix it myself, because I don't know that there's necessarily something that needs to be fixed, but more, how do we refine this so it's a positive drive and not me mentally flogging myself because something I did isn't perfect, if that makes any kind of sense.
No, that does. I totally understand the feeling like you're too hard on yourself, but at the same time, I think that what pushes a lot of people to be high achieving is a feeling of not imperfection, but you feel like you could always do more. And I mean, that also goes back to like the obsession part of it, right? Like, take anyone that is extremely successful at what they do. They're obsessed with it. Mm-hmm. Obsession is a key part to, being at the top of whatever you want to do. No one that's been average or has just barely scraped by has just become famous or has just become wildly successful or wildly rich or any of that. I mean, like, it's very foolish to think that you are going to do anything special if you're not willing to go to that place that not many are willing to go to.
Yeah.
No average person is just going to become famous out of nowhere or wildly successful out of nowhere.
Can I ask you a question about one of your goals you told me?
Yeah.
You said you want to be rich one day.
Yeah.
Why?
So I want to be able to provide my future family or my kids with a better opportunity than, what I myself had been raised with. And not that, I'm not grateful for the position my parents put me in. I have a nice car. I am going to college and going to be able to graduate debt free. I was raised in an awesome home, got everything I wanted and more. But part of me is always wanting to constantly improve. And so taking what I have and then wanting to be even better, I feel like that's the attitude that I have towards things. And I want to be able to, pay it forward to my parents as well. I mean, I want to eventually one day be able to reimburse them for, them helping me pay for my college. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to, get my dad or my mom a nice car. I want to be able to, not have to worry when the time comes for, if my parents need to, live with me, mm-hmm. or if they have to be in like an old folks home or something like that. I don't want to have to worry about the finances of that part. And so, like I said, I mean, I guess being rich is kind of like a weird term, but like I would like to be wealthy so that that's something that I don't have to worry about.
There's a, this is actually sort of funny because before we started recording, when you walked in, I had the Broken View playing on the TV. It's a new band that I got introduced to about 3 or 4 months ago, and they just started a podcast. And in the third episode, the lead singer was talking about how his younger brother, who is your age, he's either 20 or 21, but he has a severe case of autism. And he was talking about how down the road, when their parents pass away, his parents are essentially his brother's caregivers right now. And so if he's going to be a touring musician who's traveling all over the road, the kind of care that his brother needs is going to cost a lot of money. Yeah. And so for him, as he's growing, and they're trying to get on tour right now with a band called Blue October, and as they're making these steps, it's fascinating to me to get that behind the scenes shot that he's not up on that stage singing because of the fame. He's up on that stage singing because he's succession planning, because he wants to know that he will have the ability to take care of his brother, and he knows his parents are going to die. It's coming up a couple times in this episode now, and instead of being afraid of the fact that one day our parents are going to pass away, okay, let's be proactive about this. How are me and my brother, what is our life going to look like when they pass? We burn through, whatever little inheritance we have on these medical bills. Yeah. But it just goes back to that Simon Sinek book of starting with why. What's the reason behind you wanting to tour the planet as a musician? Because if it's just for money and for fame, he would burn out. But for him, his reason is so much bigger. Yeah.
So another reason why I would like to be wealthy. I'm a bodybuilder. I'm young. It takes a toll on your body physically. I mean, anybody that knows Ronnie Coleman can see that he is, pretty much crippled right now. I mean, he's in a wheelchair. He's got spine problems, hip problems, knee problems, long laundry list of issues. I've been blessed that I have not had any injuries yet, but in the off chance that it does happen, I want to be able to, whenever I'm older, be able to pay for medical bills so that there's not an issue with that. I mean, because I know that I will probably have some structural issues. Discs in my back will probably wear out. I'll probably have some problems with my, shoulders or whatever, but I don't want to have to think about the financial part of that.
Right.
So
yesterday, we saw a guy who potentially tore his pec in the gym.
Oh my gosh!
And the only reason I'm not bringing it up for the reason you might think I am, but do you know if modern medicine, let's say money isn't an issue. So let's take this dude, right? Let's say money isn't an issue. He has great insurance. He's a millionaire, whatever. Is someone like him? Are we at a place in medicine where he could get that repaired to a point where if he was a bodybuilder, he could be back on the bench doing 365 in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, or are we not quite there yet?
I think we are definitely at the point where he could eventually go back and do that. It's just a question, and not a question of if, it's a question of when. So, I mean, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, he'll probably be able to do that, but I don't know if he'll actually want to do that just because of the horrible nature
the memory
of that injury. That was, oh my God, that was crazy. So I guess for people on the podcast that are listening, I hit a bench press, just a single with 365 pounds. And then I took 50 pounds off and was doing some working sets with 315, and David was spotting me. And I'm getting ready to do another set, and then I just hear this guy screaming bloody murder in the gym floor, and I turn around and I see, and he's got the bar half on him still, and his spotter's trying to help him, and I'm like, holy crap, what's going on here? And then I help the guy rack the bar back on the bench press, and then the guy's just rolling around on the ground screaming that he just tore his pec, and he's got the same exact amount of weight that I had on the bar 10 minutes ago, and it's just older looking guy, he's pretty big. And I was just like, oh my God. And I can't help but feel like some part of him, maybe saw me do that amount of weight and was like, oh yeah, I could do that. I'm going to do that weight. And unracked it, tried to bench press it, and then ended up hurting himself. And so, that's a very scary injury. I know a couple people that have torn their pecs. My coach tore his pec a couple years ago, or not, maybe it was a year or so ago, and had to get it surgically repaired. It's a very difficult injury to come back from. It doesn't matter if you're a bodybuilder or a regular person. If you tear it completely off the bone, a lot of the times they have to go in and take a piece of your bicep, reattach it back into your skeletal system, back on your rib cage. And I don't know exactly how all of it works, but it's a very tough and long recovery process, and it's very expensive. And it also doesn't look the same after you get the surgery. You have an imbalance. It doesn't look symmetrical to your other side. And I mean, you can eventually get your strength back up to maybe do the same amount of weight, but like I said, I don't know if you'd really want to do that.
Well, the other thing I told you too is just a reminder to everyone, because hopefully you just know, but in case you don't, I didn't put my headphones in yet because I knew I was potentially going to be spotting you for another set or two. So I just left him out and was listening to the gym music. And right before he did a set, he made a comment to his spotter of yeah, man, I haven't done this in about 9 months, but I wanted to give a shot today. And the spotter was like, oh, why'd you choose today? And he was like, I'm just in sort of a fuck it mode. And the spotter was even like, well, do you want to take the 25s off and do a set with that first, or should we switch over to dumbbells? And so the spotter, I could see it in his eyes that the poor guy had some concern because I wouldn't have wanted to be that spotter in that moment. After hearing that specific comment. And so it's just one of those things, when it comes to the gym, you have to check your ego at the door, because there are days, even yesterday, man, I don't know what it was, but my last chest day, I got 115 on dumbbells. I only went up to 105 yesterday. I think that guy, I told you, I will admit, it was in my head a little bit, but also it just wasn't there, whether it was the energy, the mindset. I did feel my shoulder sort of not crunch, but it just felt a little weird. And as much as I wanted to do 115, because I literally just got it 8 days ago, it was just like, you know what, let's move on to something else. Let's do another set at 105 and then call it a day on this. But I think, you know, anyone that's going to the gym on a regular basis, we all probably have a little bit of ego about us, and it's good to just check that sometimes so you're not.
Definitely. That's, I mean, look, that dude that is a prime example of like fuck around and find out. That is like you're not just going to like willpower your way into bench pressing 400 pounds. Like your body has to be able to handle that. Everything from your tendons, your ligaments, your muscles, your bones, all of that. And like if you can't do that, you're not going to be able. It's not just going to happen because you want it to happen. Like it's going to happen because you're either strong enough or you're not strong enough. And that guy's right pec wasn't strong enough to hold that weight. And like that's, like you said, keeping your ego at the door. I mean, a lot of times, like, especially like you said yesterday, after I did just one rep with 365, you're like, oh, why don't you go for a second one? And it's like, well, I don't want to potentially risk hurting myself. And then 10 minutes later, a guy hurt himself.
Right.
So,
well, part of it, and don't let this go to your head. It was a very smooth rep, which is why it went down, it went right back up. And so that's why in my head I thought maybe a second one, but it'll come. Maybe next week, maybe a month from now.
Yeah. So I'm not a power lifter by any means. I'm a bodybuilder. I do have like a little bit of a powerlifting background. I've done like I did a powerlifting meet in high school. And like I still train, I do squat, bench and deadlift, but I don't do any 1 rep maxes. I like to do like rep maxes, and the lowest that I'll do for like a rep max is probably like 3 to 5. I never do 1 rep max just because I don't want to potentially hurt myself, because your risk of injury goes up way higher if you're trying to like figure out what your single 1 rep max is if you don't train for that.
Yeah. Did any time that we've hung out, have I told you the story about the guy whose quads Kate ripped off his knees?
Nope.
So this was probably back in like 2008 or 2009, and I wasn't there. I saw the video for it, but it was one of my friends who was in the gym. It was 5 a.m. in the morning. He was one of our regulars who's there, you know, Monday through Friday. As soon as she unlocks the doors, he's one of those like 8 or 9 people who's just there, ready to go, do his thing. And so the way she described it was, I was working the front desk, and there is a scream that was so animal in nature, she was scared to personally go back and figure out what was going on, but she had to, and she's a good worker, and so she got through real quick, sprints out to the free weight floor, and she said that he was on the floor just screaming, face red. But the thing that she noticed was all of his muscle from his quad was gone because it had rolled up and bulged. It was like bulging at more near the hip flexor. So she called it 911. They came, they got him. And essentially, so then when she checked camera footage after he was gone.
Oh, she went and watched it.
He got 2 dumbbells, sits down on the bench, leans back, and he's doing flat dumbbell bench press. He sits up, leans the dumbbell on his knee, and as he's standing up in this moment right here is when the quad just ripped off his kneecap, or wherever it's attached down there, on both legs. Sorry, maybe.
No, it's okay. That's such an unfortunate injury too, because he wasn't even doing legs. That sucks. That sucks. Ugh.
So he was not older. He was in his 50s, but years and years of just wear and tear, and I don't know. We had some speculation about why they gave out like that, but we aren't doctors, so I won't go into that on today's episode.
Yeah. That's injuries. Unfortunately, are a part of any type of performance sport that you're doing. I mean, it happens every day to people all across the country, across the world.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to be so vigilant on 1, your recovery, 2, listening to your body. Mm-hmm. And then also, like, just being able to understand, like, if you don't train a certain way for 9 months, why would you pick today to try and just see what you're capable of? Like, that is, I'm sorry, that's being a professional dumbass. That's stupid.
It's rough. Yeah. Before we move on from goals, anything else in 2024 or even beyond that you thought of?
I wrote them down. Okay, so I've got 4. The First one being more, I want to produce more content. So I do have a YouTube channel. I started in August. I've been uploading YouTube videos. I think I have like 7 right now. I haven't done one in about a month just because I've been very busy. But I'm planning to do at least 2 during my break that I'm here in Austin. I want to go to either Factory Gym or Los Campeones, but I normally go to Gold's. I want to be more financially disciplined. So I kind of went through a learning curve this summer. I made some good money from my internship. And it, kind of went pretty fast. I was spending my money on, Uber Eats and eating out, and got a pretty nice computer set up in my fraternity house in my room. Bought some other things, and kind of had to learn the hard way that, money will go much quicker than it comes. So I want to be more financially disciplined this year around. I want to be more present and where I'm at. And so, like I said earlier, I've got 3 more semesters left in college, and I know that there will come a time 10, 15, 20 years from now where I'm reflecting and looking back on the time that I had there and all those memories that I had. And so I want to be able to soak it in as much. And so what I've been doing, at least like for the last couple months, is like if I'm hanging out with my group of friends, I'm out, I'm doing something or whatever, and, I'm having a good time, I'll sit there, I'll take a deep breath, take a mental image, and just be present in that moment, because there will come a time whenever I'll look back and be like, I'm really enjoying this, and those are some good times with those people. My last one is hitting a 405-pound bench press. So yesterday I did 365 pounds.
Yep.
And 405 pounds is a 40-pound difference from that. Mm-hmm. So I've got effectively 12 months to increase my bench press by 40 pounds.
You can do it.
I think so too.
I tried to do some fast math in my head yesterday, and I'm not going to try to do it right now where we're on mic, but if you did this, which I know this is
a little more than 3 pounds a month.
Okay, thank you. That was exactly why I was just going to punch in real quick. What would an increase be though? Probably 5. Throw the 2.5s on next, or what? Like for you, what do those jumps look like normally?
So I'm a little more old school in the way that I train, like how I change my weights. I don't really use like any 5 or 10 pound or 2.5 pound increments. I like doing the 45 pound plate and a 25 pound plate, and so I'll do whatever amount of weight that I can. Like I like to do working sets of 10 to 12. So my goal right now is to do 315 for sets of 10 to 12. Once I can do 315 for sets of 10 to 12, I'll up it to 365. And once I can do 365 for sets of 10 to 12, I'll up it to 405. And then I'll try and do sets of 10 to 12 with that. But it's just like those increments, because I don't really like getting too caught up in like all the minute, tiny little details of like all of those. And I mean, I like to just go in the gym and lift some weight, which could sound a little weird because I know there's a lot of people that like to write in a journal every exact thing that happens at their workout, every minute little detail of what they eat is weighed out completely. And like, I totally understand that. But that's just not the approach that I have. Because I have a pretty good gauge and understanding of like already like with what movements, what weight to use, and what I've been able to do in the past versus what I should be doing now. So that's what I use for myself. It's a pretty good gauge. And it's a little bit old school. It's kind of like the old school bodybuilding mentality. But that's just what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. So 2 things on that. First off, there is a guest on the show. We're friends. We've hung out. If you listen to this episode, you're going to know who you are based off the story. But he hit me up and he said he was on his way, and we were recording at like 6:30 or something. And so I said, hey, I just finished dinner. It was a pretty healthy meal. I think it's like stuffed bell peppers with turkey, and there are some spices in them and some rice, so like pretty lean meal. And I said, hey, would you like some of this when you get here? Because he had mentioned he was starving, and he was like, oh, well, how many calories is it? And I said, well, it depends how much you eat. And he didn't like that answer very much, so he ended up not eating anything because I didn't have the exact calorie count. And I can't live my life like that, Jackson. Yeah. I know some people do, and to his credit, he's in phenomenal shape. So there is something to be said. I'm not slamming him, I'm not knocking
totally.
you. Like I said, you know who you are. You know I love you, and I have your back. But it just tickled me that he didn't want to have dinner with me because I didn't have a calorie count for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, this is coming from someone that's done like four bodybuilding shows. I've, won my class at teen nationals, got second in the country for classic physique. And it kind of goes back to like your attitude saying like being too hard on yourself, right? Like you will burn out or you will cause yourself to become obsessive or compulsive when it comes to food if you are way too strict on it. The times that I'm like very strict on my diet is whenever I'm doing my bodybuilding, my prep. And I don't count my calories, I don't count my protein, I don't do any of that. I have my coach send me my meal plan with my exact measurements of like you're going to eat 7 ounces of beef with 280 grams of rice, and then you're going to have a cup of vegetables. That's like that's an example of like one of the meals. I don't put the calories into my fitness pal. I don't count whatever amount it is. I eat what he tells me to eat, and I don't get too wrapped up in what are the calories or the macros or whatever it is, because it doesn't matter if you're eating the same thing every day.
In regards to your goals, I'm glad that you mentioned content, because that is one of my questions for you. In the bodybuilding community, is it important to have a strong social media following, in the sense of could it actually impact if you win or not, if you get into certain competitions or not? Do they ever gauge what your online following is, or does that not really come into play too much?
I'm not 100% certain on this because I have heard or read about people saying that it makes a difference, but at the end of the day, what I compete in, like NPC, National Physique Committee, which feeds into the IFBB, they're picking the best bodybuilder on the stage. Doesn't matter how many followers you have or, what amount of money you make or what you're contributing to the sport. And so there's been some controversy when people say like, oh, well, like for instance, there's a guy named James English. That's a fitness influencer. He's sponsored by like Young LA and Gorilla Mind. And he got his IFBB pro card in 2022. I think it was like last summer. And like, people are saying like he didn't look the best on stage, and he only got his pro card because he has a big social media following. And like, to an extent, maybe that makes a difference, but the judges are very old fashioned, and they're going to pick the best bodybuilder on that stage. And so like, I do try and put an emphasis on my social media stuff that I am putting out there. But at the end of the day, I want to be the best bodybuilder that I can be. I don't want to be known for being a fitness influencer. I want to be known for being a good bodybuilder. And so if I have a finite amount of time each day to do stuff, I'm going to put more of that time and effort into getting my meals in, into getting my workouts, into getting more sleep and more rest. But I do have free time to produce and edit YouTube videos, and I'm doing that. But I'm also really busy. So
what's going to be your goal with the YouTube videos in 2024? What would you like to see happen? Or any content you put out there in general?
I just want to continue to keep posting. And I have like almost 50 subscribers on YouTube now. I think I get like close to 100 views on each video, which like is really not that bad for just starting out. And like, I'm really not pushing content that hard, which, obviously I could get more subscribers, I feel like, if I was doing that, but I want to use it more as like a diary, for example, like for whenever the time comes 10 years from now, and I look back on my YouTube channel and I'm like, hey, I posted that video whenever I was a junior in college. There's my old gym.
Yeah.
There are my friends. There's like the frat party or whatever. And like, it's just like a log of memories basically that I can look back on and have access to, and other people can see and enjoy that. And a lot of my friends are in my videos, and they get to watch them and see themselves in them, and they enjoy looking at them. I mean, my girlfriend and her friends will watch my YouTube videos, and I'm super psyched about that, because that's just another, another view that I get, but it's also more exposure. And, instead of being like, having the mentality of like, oh yeah, they're just watching it to make fun of me. It's like, well, a view is a view. So
yeah, dude, it was funny. I posted a video of the Christmas episode this morning, and it was literally just me and two of my buddies, and we were going through some Christmas trivia and laughing and throwing back some drinks. and it got some fucking haters on there today. And I replied to, and first off, it's like, this is the most innocent clip ever, right? It's 3 dudes sitting back talking about Christmas. Like, it's whatever. But I responded to each of the comments, and to all of them, I basically said the same thing. And I was like, hey man, at the end of the day, you found me, and you just boosted this video for me. So thank you for that Christmas gift.
All publicity is good publicity.
So it's so funny, man. The people who are fucking shitting on it for whatever reason, and like I said, thanks for the analytics, appreciate you. So something that someone else mentioned to me as well, with at least with online content, is assuming that YouTube stays around for a while, which I think YouTube specifically will, is that one day it can also be something for our own families to remember us by. So if 20 years from now I pass away from a heart attack or whatever, they're going to have hours and hours and hours and hours of just stuff to be, like, man, I want to remember David today. And the way I want to remember him is by watching his interview with Jackson. And if someone wants to remember you, they can go on your YouTube page. So there's a little bit of a legacy building there that I did not have in mind when I started this. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Back to the hate. I mean, look, if you got haters, you're doing something right. And,
yes.
I mean, like, I like to have the mentality of just like not even addressing hate at all, because I feel like that just, if you are addressing hate, whether that's like on social media or you're talking about it on a podcast or whatever, like, you're just bringing to light more people that may potentially not like you. And then other people could be like, okay, well, why doesn't this person like him? And so like you could prevent yourself from having more haters if you just don't address it. And I think a lot of people get too caught up in like worrying about what other people think. It's like, it doesn't matter. If people are spending the 15 seconds of their day, their precious time that they have, to write up a comment and post it and it's negative and hate on you, let them do it. They're miserable. Let them be miserable. And, like you said, thanks for the analytics and the extra view, but all publicity is good publicity.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it was, it probably wasn't the best timing, but I answered those comments when I was drinking my morning coffee, and then I put my phone away and I took the dog for a walk. And as I was walking, running around with them and thinking about these 2 guys specifically in the comments they made, I had the thought of, I try to play devil's advocate for everyone in my life, no matter who they are. And I thought, anyone who's hating on like this specific video is probably about to potentially spend Christmas alone, or they don't have friends that they can sit back with, or they've been wanting to start a podcast for years and haven't yet, or and the list goes on. And so as I was walking the dog, I felt bad for them, because like there's something else going on behind the scenes there, where I highly doubt that they watched this video and got enraged specifically because we were doing Christmas trivia. Yeah. Like no one gets mad at that, there's something else going on there. So I have empathy for them. And if they happen to hear this episode, I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I hope you're doing better. Totally. And if you ever want to talk, reach out to me. I'll fucking talk to you. Let's do it.
Yeah. I remember in our first episode, we were talking about like getting hated on, or talking about like people hating and stuff like that. And like, I just remember like when I was 17, 18 years old and I first started doing bodybuilding stuff and posting about it on Instagram, and like hearing people make fun of me. And I was just like, wait a second, y'all are making fun of me because I'm jacked and because I look good? That's crazy. Like, why would I care about that? So,
yeah. Are you going to get your pro card?
I think so. Eventually. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Okay. So yes.
I said, are you? Yes. I was hoping for you. Yeah.
Yes.
There we go. Yes. So your next competition, you were telling me, but just for the listeners, is more than likely going to be in 2025. And what specific competition? Remind us. Did you say it's going to be?
So it's going to be the Mr. Oklahoma competition. It'll be either May or June of 2025. It'll be in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So if any of you guys want to go or are interested in that, let me know ahead of time. I can send you some information, some details on that, but it'll be, like a year and a half from now. So that's pretty far in the future. So I'm continuing to, put effort towards my off season, grow, get bigger. I'm like 220 pounds right now. Want to be 230, 235. So like 10 to 15 pounds heavier at the start of prep. So I've got 18 months, or probably like 13 months actually, because it'll be a 3-month prep. 13 months to gain 10 to 15 pounds, which is more than doable. And I'm going to compete in the classic physique division. And then depending on how close I am to my weight cap, I'll potentially do bodybuilding, like open bodybuilding as well. So I'll potentially compete in bodybuilding and classic physique. So 2 divisions. And for some reason, people have been asking me like if I'm ever going to do men's physique, and the answer is no. So,
because it's a completely different animal, and you're, like you said earlier, you're not a power lifter, you're not physique, you're into bodybuilding's your jam.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but there's just like everybody, at least like my age, like wants to do men's physique for some reason. So many people are just doing shows and competing in men's physique, and that's it. Like just the upper body in the board shorts, like that's it. And it's like, why? Like, I don't know if it's like
easier.
This is going to be a controversial opinion
hot
for
take.
any of the body.
Here we go.
Hot take from
Here we go from
a
Jackson
bodybuilder.
Struggs,
But
yep.
if you do men's physique, the joke is that you don't train legs, and so that division is coined as like men's bikini or whatever, and like that's the running joke in the bodybuilding industry is like the men's physique guys don't train legs, and to an extent, I think it's true because most of those guys that are doing men's physique at my age don't have legs, so.
Well, what's funny about that, man, is I've heard this joke, not with men's physique competition specifically, but we've all seen the memes about guys who have chicken legs and whatnot, and that guys don't train legs. I felt revived after we lifted. I love leg day. Thoughts on leg day?
Oh, dude, leg day is the best day.
It's so much fun, dude. And you just feel, I was awake afterwards. I had a great rest of the day. I was productive as hell. The only leg day that I've skipped this year was about 3 weeks ago, because when it was time for leg day, I had this weird thing in my knee. And so I gave it an extra like 3 or 4 days before I did it, just because I wanted to wait till it went away. But other than that, man, like, it's so funny to me, people who I saw a dude a couple weeks ago who jacked shoulders, jacked chest, jacked back. And then I looked down at his legs, and his calves were just like skinnier than this mic stand. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Like, that's 50% of your body. And I just don't get why some people can't get over that mental hurdle of just fucking go. You don't have to do squats. You don't have to do deadlifts. You can do the hack squat. You can do the leg press, but work your legs.
Totally. Yeah, having big legs will make you look so much more aesthetic and complete as a bodybuilder. It makes such a difference in your stature, how you walk around, your V-taper, all of that. If you have big legs, or you have like at least some amount of leg development, makes you look way better. And then on top of that, like, a true bodybuilder loves to train legs. Whenever I train like quads, what I've been doing recently is all that I do when I walk in there, I do 10 sets of 10 on the hack squat machine. So the last time I did quads was whenever I was in Tulsa. It was earlier last week. And I like to split my leg days up in like hamstring day or hamstrings and glutes, and then quad day. And for my quad day, all I do is I walk in the gym, do 10 sets of 10 on the hack squat machine. I do some calf raises, and then I walk out of there and try not to fall asleep in my car. But I did 10 sets of 10 with 5 plates on each side on like the Arsenal hack squat machine. And like my legs will be busted up for like a week and a half after that. It's just like I'm walking around in pain. It just hurts. But that's how you get big legs.
And he does have big legs. You can't see it on camera. If you can, you literally can't. He has jeans on right now, but you can even see through his jeans. And we were doing legs, you had shorts on. Like, your legs are huge. So
thank you.
It was that workout. I have been doing splitting up mine as well, but you gave me a few ideas about how I'm going to change the split a little bit. So yeah, huzzah for legs. Everyone should do them. Before we move on, temperature-wise, you doing okay? You want me to close the door and turn on the air, or are you comfy?
I'm good.
Okay, cool. We have 2 topics that I would like to end with, but before I jump into them, is there anything else that you wanted to discuss today?
Not really, not that I could think of.
Okay, cool. Before we also go into this last section, I will ask that if you have enjoyed this episode so far, as Jackson was talking about earlier, please subscribe to the David Saturday Night YouTube channel. Do you know what the name of your YouTube channel is? Is it just Jackson Struggs?
Just my name, Jackson Struggs.
So look up Jackson Struggs if you want some workout tips and whatnot. I watched a few of them. The guy's a beast. So if you're new to the gym and you want some ideas from someone who knows what they're doing, Go check it out. Subscribe to the channel. It's free workout advice from someone who has won multiple competitions, so it's pretty good content, and there's only going to be more of it coming, and the more he grows, the better it's going to get. So go subscribe to his channel as well. And if you're listening on Spotify today or Apple Podcasts, I would ask that you take 30 seconds and go give us a 5-star rating so that these episodes can reach the people who needs to hear them, whether it's someone who's looking for someone to admire from afar because they're new to the gym and they're building their self-confidence, to maybe people who just like having, listening to good conversations between two dudes talking about life. So please go leave those reviews. With that being said, we have hung out now multiple times. You are back for your second episode, and I was wondering if I could ask you a potential personal question.
Go for it.
Okay. So with this comes from something it just popped up on Google, but I'm going to read it exactly as I found it. Recently, Anton, I hope I don't butcher your name. I apologize. Anton Rutschini beat out Arnie's record by becoming the world's youngest professional bodybuilder at 19 years old. Anton won the NPC National Division title last weekend, giving the youngster his pro card as he earned the title of youngest classic physique professional. When you heard this news, what went through your head?
Okay. I found it, so I've actually known who the guy was before he went pro. I had seen his Instagram. I saw that he'd competed before. He's got I think a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram. He's got YouTube channel and stuff, and he's got some sponsorships and stuff. He's full-blown fitness influencer. He's from Ukraine. And like I said, he's 19 years old. Very impressive title, and is definitely going to be a competitor at the Mr. Olympia and all of that. He's got a bright future ahead of him. It's inspiring to me because seeing someone younger than me accomplish a dream and a goal that I have set for myself only lights a fire under my ass even hotter. Makes me want to be more disciplined in my bodybuilding stuff, go to bed earlier, eat more food, get my meals in more, and it's motivating. It's, if anything, more motivating to me than people a lot older than me getting their pro cards. And so props to him for setting a new record and setting the new standard at the top of the sport. So
yeah.
And by the way, he went pro at the show was in Irving, Texas. It was Dallas area.
Oh, so he was here.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's pretty local. I think he's from the Houston area, or he lives there. So
yeah. So I actually did not find about this online. I found about it through you because you mentioned it when we were working out. And one thing that I wanted to just check in with you was when you told me, it did seem like there's a little bit of either frustration or maybe I'm still getting to know you, so I'm not sure what word, but I wanted to just, like I said, check in and see, if you'd be honest about, and if I read you wrong,
I definitely feel a little jealous.
Okay, a little jealous.
Definitely.
Have you spent much time thinking about it over the last 5, 6, 7 days, however long it's been? Because this is brand spanking new. This was under a week ago.
I think so. There's I can't remember what Drake's song it is, but there's a lyric that I like to keep in the back of my mind. It's anytime something spectacular happens or something big happens, someone is give it time. Let's see who's still around a decade from now. I think the song is Tuscan Leather. Really good song. And it just makes me think sure, the kid could have, the kid went pro at 19 years old, but he hasn't won any pro shows. He hasn't competed any pro shows. He hasn't made it to the Olympia yet. The kid could tear his pec tomorrow, get hurt, and never compete again. Or the kid could have health problems or a million other things could happen. But it's hard for me to not feel jealous because, like I said, I have a goal of competing in 2025. And so I'm just trying to be patient and soak it all in and just be I'm still really young in what I'm doing. But we'll see. We'll see what happens 10 years from now, where he's at, if he's truly capable of what all these other people are saying he's doing. So
jealousy is it's an interesting emotion because one, I think it's human. And totally. I felt it myself. There is a podcast that launched here in Austin after mine, and I saw an Instagram post saying that they went live, and I was really happy for them at first because they had been working on it for about a year, and I launched mine. It went from idea to first episode live. It was about 100 days, give or take. And I remember thinking about, I don't want to name the individuals, or I guess I could give them a shout out, but it's regardless. Months had been going by, and I'd look up the podcast every now and then. I'd look up their YouTube page, nothing. So then they launched. I was super happy for them, and I think they did one of two things when they launched, which was genius. I think they either threw some sort of watch party, like had everyone come over to their house, and when the episode went live, had everyone bust out their phones and do reviews on Spotify and Apple and on YouTube, because what happened was they had this heavy influx of 5-star reviews that came within 24 hours of the show going live. And I had the same thing where I went from being happy for them to jealous, because now here, the thing that went through my head was, here I am, I've been working my ass off for like 6 months, and they got more reviews than I have in a day. Fuck these guys, so it's one of those things, like it creeps up on you, and you can't help it. And I think what's important is what you do with it next. Do I continue to agonize about this and let it, continue to kick myself while I'm down? Or do I just pivot and strategize about, okay, so how do I continue to increase mine? And what is David going to do about his show? Because me sitting here being envious about their show is not going to do anything to help mine. It's not productive. It's going to throw my mindset off when I'm trying to have a conversation with you. It's not going to do anything for me. Yeah. So I think that, like I said, we all have those moments where it creeps in, but you just have to figure out what you're going to do with it while it's there.
Totally. And yeah, I mean, like, we're two completely different people, different goals. That's his success. That's not my success. I had nothing to do with that.
Right.
I wasn't there with him spending the time that he was in the gym. I wasn't there seeing him eat all his meals. I wasn't there. I wasn't even at that show. I wasn't even watching it. So, everybody's got a plan, and everybody has their own life and things that they're going to do. And you know what? Like I said, the kid may never compete again. Something tragic could happen, and I don't want that to happen. Right. But I'm saying, like, something could happen to where he doesn't ever do another show again. But I'm more focused on my success and how I'm trying to accomplish my goals and where I'm going to be than just getting hung up on him. And in a way, it could, someone completely different than me that has the same goal could see that as being totally discouraging. And they're just like, oh, this 19-year-old kid already accomplished my goal. Well, fuck it. I don't want to do it anymore. What's the point, right? But you can either let it discourage you or motivate you. And I've always been the type that lets that type of thing motivate me.
Good. As an aside, I definitely want to be at your show in 2025. Like you said, it's a long ways away, so something could happen. But as I think about it, unless there's some family emergency that I'm running back to my home state for to attend, I would love to be there supporting you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So you'll have at least one fan there. I'm sure you'll have more, but I will be amongst them. Get to meet some of your friends and family and whatnot too. The other thing I was just going to say around jealousy was I heard an interview recently where they were talking about how Tiger Woods' childhood was like, and how he was on the golf course as early as 2 years old, and his first couple years on the golf course, his dad put him through such an intense training that included racism and just getting exposed to things that we would all hope children aren't getting exposed to, that they actually had a safe word in place so that if it got too intense, Tiger could give his dad that safe word. And at that point, he would take him off the field. But with the golfing analogy, there might be people who see Tiger and how he performs, and say, I wish I had his life. But you can't just take that golfing skill. You have to take everything behind the scenes that came with it, which I love that I stumbled upon this interview, because the one about Tiger, because it reinforced why jealousy is just such an unproductive emotion. That you were talking about, you don't know what's going to happen to Anton in the future. We also have no idea what it took behind the scenes.
Exactly.
And we might not never know, and maybe hopefully it's been all positive. I'm not hating, wishing a bad childhood on this kid. But with Tiger, I don't know how public that information is. But I will just wrap up Anton and in the jealousy section with, you got to take, if you're going to be jealous about someone, you got to keep in mind everything that they've experienced and not just that moment on stage where you look good for 60 seconds.
Totally. And I mean, I know that there are plenty of people that would kill to be in the position that I'm in right now. I mean, at 21 years old, having the accomplishments so far that I've, things that I've done, and, the position that I'm in right now. And so I'm very grateful for, my group of friends around me. I'm grateful for my parents. I'm grateful for the successes that I've had, and the people that have, pushed me and helped me get to where I am today. That's gratitude. Gratitude is a big piece of that. And I'm very grateful.
Yeah. Good. We are not quite wrapping up, but I want to make a request to the audience that for this last portion of the episode, if I had to guess, it will probably last about 10 to 20 minutes. And my request to you for this portion, really, I want you to do this for yourself. I don't want you to do this for me, is if you happen to be driving or listening at work, I want you to go ahead and pause this, because I've never made this request on the show before, but for the next 10 to 20 minutes, however long this section takes, I want you guys to go somewhere where you're comfortable, whether that's your bedroom, a park that you're really fond of, but somewhere where you can focus. And I want you to be able to be undisturbed for the next 10 or 20 minutes. And I also want you to grab a piece of paper and a pen. If you happen to journal on a regular basis, grab your journal. But go ahead and do these things for me. And I think you'll get if this goes the way I anticipate it goes, you'll just get a lot more out of it if you can be hyper-focused. With that being said, I know I set my phone aside. Is your phone on silent? And all right, cool. So we won't get distracted either. So before I dive into this, I want to ask you, I think all humans do this, but I want to ask you, do you ever visualize yourself doing anything, whether it's something like winning Mr. Olympia or being a rock star in front of a crowd full of people, even though you can't sing? Like what kind of stuff do you imagine yourself when you're just working out or whenever you daydream?
Definitely. I like to visualize myself, like you said, winning the Mr. Olympia or winning the pro card. Winning Mr. Oklahoma. I like to visualize myself in a nice car, in a nice house, with my wife. I like to visualize myself like any goal that I have. I like to visualize myself accomplishing and in that goal.
What's a funny one? One that like you don't even it won't even come true. Like one of mine. I was thinking about this morning. Did you ever play the N64 GoldenEye 007 first person shooter? As a kid, I always imagined myself as a secret agent. Sometimes I still do. And it's just fun, right? You're just thinking. You're in the gym, you're driving, whatever. And I have no intention of ever joining the CIA or the FBI, but it's just sort of fun. Do you have any ridiculous ones that they'll never come true, but you think about?
Being Batman.
Yes!
So there's like a running joke with my friend group. They call me Batman because like they just say that I look like Batman and like I'm protector of Gotham City or whatever, and like just I was Batman for Halloween my sophomore year of college, and I had like a Batman suit and everything. But yes, Batman.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Fuck yeah. One of my favorite ones is a singer in front of a stage full of people, and I don't even know why. I think it's just when I see people performing, I think part of it is the passion, and there's something where you can just tell like they're doing exactly what they're meant to be doing. One of my realistic ones is me doing a live episode with Peter Dinklage.
Nice.
Yeah, it would be live streamed on YouTube as well. But also we would be in some sort of stadium or auditorium, maybe not a big one, maybe a small one that holds 600 people. It's not necessarily going to be somewhere huge, but I think about this specific guest and what a few other details of the event probably on a weekly basis. And so anyways, I stumbled upon a visualization exercise of sorts. And so here's how it's going to go. We're both going to close our eyes. We're going to take 20 deep breaths. You, Jackson, and the audience are going to keep your eyes closed. I wanted to go through this with you guys word for word. So we'll do our breaths, and then you'll keep your eyes closed until I say the end. And we'll take it from there. And if you want, you can even put the mic down. If you want to hold it, you can keep it. But yeah, Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you scared and nervous at all?
I'm excited.
I think it's going to be pretty cool. All right, here we go. So we're going to start with 20 breaths. Don't worry about counting. I'll do that for all of us. You've woken up. Your current life, being in David's home, recording an episode of a podcast, was just a dream. The actual reality, you live in a care home. You are your 90-year-old self, but if the worst version of yourself controlled your entire life was run by your worst personality traits: ego, fear, pride, envy, greed, narcissism, procrastination, impatience. All your time is spent in regret, replaying all of your mistakes. You never took a risk or listened to your gut. You pushed your family and friends away. The lazy care home team never checks in on you. Every part of your old body aches like you've just run a marathon. Your left eye no longer works. You've lost one of your hearing aids. You try and get out of bed. You collapse to the floor. You crawl into a wheelchair. In front of you is a giant clock. This clock has 5 minutes left on it. Above the clock, there are 7 words. How long you have left to live. Your heart sinks further. All the regrets get more intense and vivid. Bang, bang, bang. There's a knock on the door. You wheel across in your wheelchair. It requires all of your body's strength to open the door. As the door opens, an overwhelming golden glow appears. Staring back at you is a person you recognize. It's you. But the person you could have become. It's the version of you if your best self made all your decisions. They are 90 years old, but they look so much younger than you. With a massive smile on his face, your best self tells you stories of the fantastic life he had. The risks he took, the magic moments, the memories with friends and family. Where you zigged, they zagged. Your envy is overwhelming. You do anything to go back in time. Rage kicks in. You ask your best self to shut up. You then look over at the clock on the wall. It has 30 seconds left. You're about to die. Fear and regret intensify. The best version of yourself is about to leave the room. But before he goes, he says, I've got good news. I can send you back in time. But you have to promise me this. Write down an action you'll do today that involves your best self, and an action to avoid your worst self. You shake hands, sign a contract, and promise to schedule it in your calendar. He opens his time machine. Wham! You're back in the present moment. You're the person that 90-year-old self was desperate to be. You have a clear list of actions and when you're going to do them today. Open your eyes and write down the agreement. The end. What's going through your head right now?
It's a powerful exercise. I can't really think of something that my best self would do today. I mean, I already had like a ton of things planned that I was going to be doing today.
Right. What about on the opposite end? Is there any, as you were thinking about the first half of the exercise, was there anything that went through your head that you could avoid?
I think something that I could do to avoid my negative self or my bad self would be to stop putting off trying to improve my relationship with my twin brother. So I'm going to speak with him today if I can, if he is here, if he's with my dad. So
in general, is he in town right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Yeah, he's here.
Cool.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, we used to not have the best relationship, but slowly has been improving, and glad to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have someone in my family. It's funny, man. I don't often get stumped, but I like to keep it pretty human on this podcast, especially if anyone else is going through the same thing. But a family member came to visit me about 6 weeks ago, and while they were in town, they told me they don't like my sense of humor. They think the podcast is not going to go anywhere. They don't like the gifts I give them for Christmas, and I should not bother buying them anything this year. And they did not want to spend any time here. I told them they could stay here, and they gave a pretty rude reason why they didn't want to. And I'm going to see this person for Christmas, and this is one of the few times in my life where I have no idea how to navigate this relationship.
Yeah.
You know, usually I can see a pretty clear end, even if I don't like it. It's like, all right, well, I was in the wrong. I need to apologize, but I don't know, man. It's been on my mind, and I don't know if you noticed, but when you asked me at the gym the other day if I was happy, that was the first thing that came to my mind, and that's why I hesitated a little bit, because I'm pretty happy in life right now, but I've just never had someone take a massive shit on me before, but then also be in a dynamic where you have to see them again. Like, because this is very different from the people we were talking about who commented on the pod. I'll never meet them. I don't know who they are. So it's different. But then when you have a family member who tells you they just flat out don't believe in you in multiple ways, it's like, I don't know what to say to you when I see you on Christmas Day and you walk through the door, you know? So
no, I can sympathize with that, because I've had, I'm not going to say who, but there have been times whenever I've had family members that have not necessarily agreed with like what I'm trying to do with bodybuilding, or felt that I had made the wrong decision in terms of, where I'm going to school, or if I'm doing this or that or whatever. And like, I think a lot of it comes from insecurity on their end, and also fear. You're doing something that is out of the ordinary, and that's frightening to them, because you have the balls to do something that they probably don't, and they're intimidated by that.
Yeah.
So,
have you ever heard, I want to end this on a positive note. So that's, but without going off subject either, let me find my notes. But we're going to go through a list of questions real quick. Have you ever heard of the term being a high agency person versus a low agency type of person?
I can kind of understand what the saying means. Yeah.
I'll define it in a minute, but I'm going to ask you a series of questions, very, very lighthearted ones.
Yeah.
And tell me, and some of these we already know the answers to, but let me ask you all 7 of them anyways.
Cool.
First one, do you have an immigrant mentality, meaning you are someone who has moved from your hometown or even your home country?
Yes.
Yes, we knew that one already because it's college. Do you feel that people can never or rarely guess your opinions? For example, a boxer that likes to write poetry, the advertiser obsessed with the history of war. In other words, your beliefs don't always line up with the stereotypes of someone who's into bodybuilding, finance, fraternities, etc.
Definitely.
Do you, I love this one. Did you have any weird teenage hobbies?
I mean, I guess bodybuilding is weird. It would be seen as weird by people.
Do you have anyone in your life where you may be mean to them to their face, but nice to them behind their back? The only example I could think of for this one, did you happen to see the movie Devil Wears Prada?
Yeah.
What was interesting about Miranda Priestley's character was she was like this to her assistant. But what was interesting was she also never gossiped about her assistant, threw her under the bus. Everything she did advanced her career. And when I read this question and she was the first person that popped up in mind, I thought that's sort of a fascinating lens to look at people like that through. I would say no to this one. I don't fall. I'm pretty nice to everyone, but what about you? Do you have anyone where you maybe not mean, but like you're more stern, or maybe you don't open the doors of your personal life too much, anything like that?
I think I have 2 friends in the past, just because, I don't want to talk bad about people,
right.
But at the same time, like if my friend is messing up or doing something he shouldn't be doing, I'm going to tell him that. I'm not just going to let that continue. I'm going to let them know, hey, either this is bothering me, or I don't like what you're doing or what you're changing about yourself. But at the same time, if I'm talking to my friends about him, I'm not going to talk badly about him,
Right.
So
do you think there's anyone in your life that would call you for help if they were stuck in a third world dungeon or on an island?
Definitely.
Do you know who you would call?
I think I'd call my girlfriend first.
There you go. Do you feel like you can change the energy of a room when you enter it?
Yes.
Do you have the courage of your convictions? In other words, if someone watching is not familiar with that phrase, do you have the confidence to do what you think is right, even when others observing may not agree or approve?
Yes.
So essentially, as I did a little bit of research over high agency versus low agency, high agency people are people where they say, I happen to life. I have the ability to enact change, whereas low agency people have a mentality of life happens to me. And typically people who answer more yeses to those 7 questions are typically higher agency, and people who are answering the more no's to those questions are low agency. But I do think that from doing this podcast, high agency people are typically misunderstood. People don't get us. People don't get why we're working 20 hours a day. People don't get why the podcast is important, why bodybuilding is important. But yeah, no, I don't know. The weird teenage hobby one though made me smile. They said it just shows that you're, if you're willing to go against the grain at that age, then you're probably, it's easier for you to also do that as you get to your 20s, your 30s, your 40s.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, man, this has been awesome. You are going to be in town for about another 20 days. What's Christmas Day? What's New Year's going to look like?
So I'm split between my mom and my dad's, and then I also have to go to my girlfriend's place. So I got 3 Christmases.
Perfect.
I'll be attending. And then New Year's, my dad is going to the University of Texas versus University of Washington football game in Louisiana on it's like one of the playoff games for the NCAA championship. So I'll be probably with my mom, or I'll be watching my dog at my dad's house. So that's what I'm planning to do. I'll definitely see my girlfriend, and I'll probably hang out with her on Christmas Eve too, or New Year's Eve.
Right on.
What about you?
I'm going to fly home to California first thing tomorrow morning. I'm going to spend the first 3 to 4 days with friends. I'm going to spend the rest of the time with family. Christmas Day is going to be at my mom's house. It's going to be a lot of ping pong, board games, feasting, relaxing, probably watch a movie or 2 in the evening as things wind down, or probably just be background noise. And then when I get back, I have some plans to see some other friends here locally before we all get back to work on Tuesday the 2nd. So yeah, man, I'm going to work out with a few of my buddies. That's always fun. We'll grab some food afterwards. And I'm excited for a week back in California.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's good to decompress, take some time off.
Definitely. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back. I really appreciate it. Jackson, thank you so much for making a second appearance and just for everything you said. And again, man, I just want to tell you, I'm so impressed by you. I really hope that people your age and a little bit younger hear this episode, because I think that you're just forging a trail, man, that's pretty fucking awesome. And I think that people admire you and look up to you. And like I said, I have have this delusional belief that kids across the country who may never meet you or may never meet me will hear this episode and it will spark something in them to chase after, whether it's bodybuilding or just that thing that they're afraid to do because they think people will call them crazy. I think that they'll see your example and they might take action on that. So thank you for being who you are. And everyone have a healthy and happy Saturday night. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome. Bye, guys.